shocked me right when you present this very same experience or interview you did in the webinar was that governance were the least popular among sustainability leaders. In particular, in Latin America, we have a great deal of corruption. Politics are not honest, and how can you talk about sustainability when governments are not credible?
I think your question suggests something that we believe is essential, which is that no matter how we judge governments today, it is incredibly important that they become part of the solution, and that solutions are in fact unlikely without them. So the question you're referring to asks specifically, which institution do you believe has done the most to advance sustainable development since 1992? And I think the phrasing is what places government where it is. So it's not a question about capability. It's not a question about responsibility. It's a question about whether they've delivered on their promises. And if you look at this period, the experts say government, for its power and the importance, thank you, of its role, is the one that has not sort of stepped up to the plate and delivered what it's repeatedly promised. In most years of the survey, we ask a mirroring question. And the mirroring question is, regardless your perception of their performance to date, which institution do you expect the most of in future years? And the question flips over. And so every time we ask that question, national governments go to the top, the private sector locks in the second place, and it sort of plays back down. I think NGOs sit at the top today out of admiration for how they've been advocates for this agenda, but there is a healthy recognition among the experts too that they don't have the power to actually make the changes, and that at the end of the day, that's going to come down to national governments who make the laws, and to private sector corporations, which are actually more global in many cases than the governments that try to regulate them. So we haven't in any way given up on government. And when we get into that collaboration attribute, we absolutely would expect there that government is a key player. And when we talk about advocacy as a leadership attribute, we're often talking about government as the target of that advocacy.
Thank you very much, Mark. I was listening to your conference, and I know you come from John Elkington's creation. He was the creator of the triple bottom line. And here in Argentina, and then I saw that you presented 3 eras. The last one is more integrated era, and I think we are evolving. What do you think about that? To a more creating integrated value, not just triple bottom line, which means to integrate the human being in the management, and all the governance, corporate governance, and so on. And yesterday, I've been in a gratitude event with some spiritual leaders, and we asked them, how can we change the leader's mindset? And as you are leading some studies in sustainability leadership and leadership, you're working with very important companies. Do you think is it possible from your organization to work with, for example, more compassionate practices like mindfulness, meditation, and so on?
Yeah, I do. I'm amazed actually at the place that mindfulness has kind of won in our current societal norms. I can't tell you the number and the pace at which the meetings that I attend begin with a mindfulness moment. And when we run seminars for corporations, we bring elements of mindfulness into the room when we're talking about strategy that you wouldn't have been allowed to touch recently. People would have been too uncomfortable, too nervous, felt it was too awkward, felt it was something that belonged outside of work. When we talk about how leaders change, in the book we do a reflection on that as well. And each circumstance is different, but we did feel that there are at least 3 most common drivers that push people kind of to a determination to lead on sustainable development. And we gave them 3 letter P labels.
Yeah.
Perspective and pressure and people. And so at times it is the external pressure. It can be a campaign. Nike would be one of the companies that was thrust into this space by the child labor issues in its supply chain in the 1990s. It's obviously moved a tremendous distance since then, but it's a pretty hard way to have to learn. If you can avoid pressure being the motivator, then good for you. But the burning platform is sometimes required as well. Perspective has come more inside organizations where there have been revelations related to science, where there's been a shift in kind of societal values. And we might see evidence of that in Stuart Rose, who was the leader at Marks & Spencer when they launched Plan A. And he had gone to see Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. It was the moment for him when he became convinced that the science of climate change was not only real, which he accepted before, but that it was going to transform business through its impacts. And he thought that Marks & Spencer had to get at the forefront of figuring out what business would do about that as a result. And then sometimes it just comes down to amazing people. I talked in the presentation about Natura and their founder establishing the Bang Star Bang, well being well, as their purpose, but Interface as well, Ray Anderson. There are at times these iconic leaders in institutions who bring a value set that kind of infuses the company in a way that doesn't go away. The worry is, what if you don't have that founder? What if you're not currently the target of a campaign? And I think you then have to work in the perspective space and broaden people's minds. Some of that is making the best available science visible to them. Some of that is putting things in a larger context. But some of that as well, I think, is inviting the whole person to this work. And you opened your question with, does meditation and mindfulness have a place? And I certainly think that it does, that there's something there about being connected to something larger than your individual self. That extends into the organization that you're part of. It extends beyond the organization's walls as well.
Thank you.